Hey guys, what's going on? Hayden here. I am here because I have some questions, and I probably am not alone on this. I am super hyped for the Nintendo Switch, don't get me wrong, but there's still quite a few things that we don't know about, and the Switch is just over a month away. So I kind of want to go through some things that we don't know about the Switch yet, because personally, I think that there's enough here, at least that I have written down, that we could actually see a Nintendo Direct before the Switch's launch, maybe 2 weeks out or something, clarifying these things, kind of going into more detail on what these are, because um the reveal event back in well, I say back in January, it's still January. On January 12th, they were very focused on selling you on what the Switch was, why it was cool, why you needed it, why you needed these games. But there's a lot of things that they didn't go into much detail on, which I understand. They only had so much time, and they didn't want to reveal too much because it might be a bit confusing. So there's some things I think that they need to clarify on, and I think that this is justified for a Nintendo Direct. So the first thing, Virtual Console. What is going on with the Virtual Console? Is there, I mean, I think they said that it's not going to be at launch. I can't keep up with everything, but I guess what I'm wondering more importantly is there going to be an upgrade service? Or is there going to be finally a way that if you download it on the Switch, you universally have it amongst all of your consoles from now on? I don't want to download Super Metroid for the third time or something, or like Earthbound. Like, having like this has been something that has been drilled into the ground for so long, like, to Nintendo, like, you gotta do this. You gotta have a way to universally own all of these downloaded Virtual Console games, and they haven't done it yet. Like, we're in 2017, so they really need to clarify, or at least, like, if, like, is there going to be an upgrade service? Like, if you downloaded it on the Wii U, can you get it for like $1 on the Switch or something? Like, there needs to be a way for Nintendo to, very practically help these people who are downloading these virtual console games. Like, they got to be able to have them all the time, because I'm not gonna buy a retail game, for every single console. So why should I have to buy a virtual console game for every single console if I want to play it on that console? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me, and it's kind of crazy that Nintendo hasn't done it yet. But I also want to know, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, are there going to be GameCube games? I think that was a plan that they had for the Wii U, and then they just kind of forgot about it. Like, I don't, I could be wrong. Tell me in the comments if I'm wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure they wanted to have that on the Wii U, and they just didn't. They had Game Boy Advance, which was really cool, but they didn't have GameCube. And it kind of really needs to happen, especially if, like, the first year lineup of games isn't that strong, but if they can kind of pepper it with, GameCube games, because the GameCube didn't sell that well. A lot of people didn't play a bunch of classic GameCube games. I haven't played a lot. Metroid Prime, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, I like Luigi's Mansion. These are a lot of games I need to play. I never got to play because I never got a GameCube. Um, but I really think that Nintendo needs to have GameCube Virtual Console, and they need to talk about that. And I think if when they reveal the Virtual Console, we might get a Mother 3 reveal, because there's rumors about that being on the Virtual Console, being localized, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Uh, Virtual Console, they need to talk about it. They need to talk about it in detail, because people are wondering. It's a pretty important thing. It's something that Nintendo is known for, having backwards compatibility. Anyway, but that kind of brings me into my next point with NES and SNES games. Now, Nintendo has announced that these games are going to have online functionality. Like, the original Super Mario Kart will have online play. F-Zero will have online play. Like, well, they haven't specified which games specifically, but you can assume that those are some of the games that would have online play. That's really cool. But they need to clarify, of course, first of all, which kind of games are actually going to have that online play. But they also need to clarify, are they just slapping online play onto these original games, or are they rebuilding the game from the ground up? Are they refining it? Are they getting rid of the glitches? Are they building the online mode from the ground up alongside this revamped version of the old game? If they do rebuild the game, they're going to keep it like you remember it. They're not going to update the graphics. They're not going to update the controls. It's going to play exactly the same. They're just going to, tidy it up. I mean, why wouldn't they? But this begs the question, if it becomes a game that they make from the ground up, or if they just, you know what I mean. If they refine the game, they don't just straight up emulate it, they refine it. How is the online play going to work? Is it going to be choppy or is it going to be good? Because if you're programming, this is a little bit of computer programming talk. If you're programming for a really old game, like if you're going to program online play onto a really old game, like old games have really hard to use netcode. And if you're gonna like a game like Mario Kart, where you're gonna want precise movement like all the time, you're gonna want as soon as you press left, you're gonna want to go left. You don't want any lag there. You don't want any input lag. And if they don't kind of build this from the ground up, if they don't take the game and refine it and rebuild it, it could make for a really janky online multiplayer experience. So I think they kind of need to talk about that. Is this going to be reworked or is it going to be just straight up like, we're just going to throw online onto this emulated game? I think they need to talk about that. But this also kind of brings me into my next point, the online services. So again, something Nintendo has really not talked about a lot. And there's a lot of questions surrounding it. I'll talk about the games first. Apparently, once a month, you will be able to download a game for free, a virtual console title, and you'll have it free for the entire month. Or will you? Will you have it for the entire month? Say you download it on January, or like, I don't know, say you download it on like April 7th. Is that gone on at the end of April, or do you have it for 30 days after April 7th? They need to clarify that because if you say you just forget and you download it on like April 28th, well, great, you only have a few days to play it. I don't think that's fair. So if you have it for 30 days and then you have the option to buy it afterwards, I think that makes way more sense. And I think Nintendo needs to clarify which of those two it is. I'm really hoping it's the 30-day thing and not just what like for the rest of the month, because that would be kind of unfair. But they also need to talk about this mobile app that they're doing. Like, what is going on with this mobile app? Apparently, excuse me, apparently this is how you're going to be able to use voice chat. You're going to be able to use your phone, and that's how you're going to be able to do voice chat. But there's a few problems with that I'm seeing that they need to clarify on. I mean, first of all, the other day, the Nintendo Switch website, I think it was like the UK website or something. I forget, but they basically did. This is like the official Nintendo Switch website. They kind of listed off all of they gave a very detailed breakdown of the Nintendo Switch. What this button is, what this screen is, what this port, like what everything on the Switch did. And there is a headphone jack which provided the support of a headset, which you would presumably use for talking online. Do you need the app and a headset? Like, it wouldn't make much sense to have this app where you can talk to people if you're just able to use a headset anyway. Unless that's just an error, but I can't really see that being an error. Like, what's going on there? What's the deal? And furthermore, is this app just going to be straight up like a Skype app that's got a Nintendo label slapped on it? Like, because if so, that's not really that appealing. Like, why not just use regular Skype anyway? It's something that everybody has. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if they can pull it off, or there's some actually like really cool features with this mobile app, like if it can sync with your contacts, if it's just very practical it's very user friendly. You know, I don't know. Like, we don't know anything about this. If Nintendo can convince us that this is something that you need, well, I mean, obviously you need it for online play, but if it's something that you're going to want to use, great. Maybe PlayStation and Xbox will make like a knockoff of it. They tried to do motion control when motion controls flew off with the Wii. PlayStation and Xbox, they tried to replicate it and they couldn't. That's just going to make Nintendo look even better if they have this really solid app. But they really need to elaborate more on that. But they also need to elaborate more on the online services in general. How much is this going to cost for the year? Is there going to be like a monthly payment and whatnot? I forget if they announced that or not, if you can pay it monthly or online. I think they actually, or for a year. I think they actually did clarify on that, but they still need to give us pricing because a problem I have is like, say you're like 13 or 14 years old, and actually I saw this earlier. Josh Thomas on the BitBlock, he brought this up, and this is a very good point. Um, Say you're like a young kid and you're trying to convince your parents to buy you this new video game. I mean, I don't want to speak for all parents, but some parents, they're not gonna understand, why does my son need this game? Like, why can't he play his other games? Like, but he finally gets his parents to he convinces his parents to finally buy the game. But then he tries to convince his parents, oh yeah, I need $80 for online play for the year. Like, I don't think they're gonna understand the justification for that price point. So I think Nintendo needs to really be careful with how they price this because Nintendo has Nintendo's so weird, man. Like we've had online for free for the past, 8 or 9 years. But if Nintendo can't justify paying for something that we've had for free for so long, it's gonna look really bad. And they're not gonna make a lot of money on it, and it costs money to run these servers. So Nintendo really has to be careful with how they justify pricing this. They've got to make sure that it's not janky anymore. Because when I play Smash Wii U online, it can lag pretty badly sometimes. They need to, again, offer really great incentives for using the online. If I'm going to pay for this, like, I want to have reasons to want to keep coming back to this other than just playing online. Because some of us just don't play online that much. I don't know. Nintendo needs to work on their online. My nose is really itchy tonight. Sorry, I'm like scratching it a lot. Nintendo really needs to work on getting the message across of what the online is, what it's going to provide, why you want it. I also think that they need to talk about launch titles. There aren't a lot. Um, there's Zelda, there's Bomberman, there's Snipper Clips, there's One Two Switch, and there's a few more. But there's really not a lot at launch. I mean, there's Zelda, and there's a very I don't want to say it's a bad Bomberman game, but it just looks like it really plays it safe. It just looks like Bomberman as we know it. It doesn't look like anything crazy innovative. I think Nintendo really needs to talk about, maybe we're gonna have some indie games at launch. Maybe like they need other things at launch. They don't have to be AAA titles like Breath of the Wild, but you need some more important stuff at launch. Because if you don't like Zelda, why would you buy a Switch at launch? I mean, one, two Switches, whatever. Bomberman I think it'll be good, but it doesn't look like a compelling reason to buy the console. So if there are more launch titles, I think Nintendo really needs to speak up now, because they need to get as many people buying this Switch day one. If they want good publicity about this, selling out, that's what's gonna make people want to buy it. Like, oh my God, people are buying this Switch so much it's sold out. Even if it is understocked, it's gonna send that false message that, oh, now I need one because it's sold out, kind of thing. Nintendo needs to make the Switch more compelling at launch. Within a year's time, I think the Switch will be very compelling. I think there's a lot of good games coming out for the Switch, but again, Zelda's the only really big one at launch. So I think we need to talk a little more about launch titles. If they have more launch titles, whatnot. But I also mentioned indie support. Nintendo hasn't really talked about that much yet. The only indie developers I think we know of. Okay, well, there's a fair amount of indie games we know coming to the Switch. We know Yooka-Laylee is coming to the Switch, which we actually just found out today. Like officially, like, yeah, the Switch version's coming, but it's not coming at April 11th, which is a shame, but it is still coming to the Switch, which I think is still better than the Wii U. Um, but anyway, we know Shovel Knight is coming to the Switch, Spectre of Torment. We know that Minecraft is coming to the Switch. But there's a lot of indie developers that we still don't know what their story is with the Switch. I think Nintendo really needs to talk about that because indie games have really kind of picked up the slack where the Wii U was lacking in third-party games. The indie games kind of, picked up the slack. And Nintendo really needs to, like, this is their next big console. Nintendo needs to talk to us about indie games. What's coming to the Switch? How are they treating indie developers for the Switch? I can't imagine it would be bad, but Nintendo needs to tell us about that because there's a lot of people that care about the indie games, including myself. Shovel Knight is an amazing game. Fast Racing Neo, I love that game. There are indie games that we care about that we want to know about, and Nintendo really hasn't talked about that yet. So those are kind of the things that I wanted to bring to you guys. This is why Nintendo should have a Nintendo Direct before the Switch launches, because there's still a lot of things that people are still confused about or Nintendo hasn't elaborated on. But what do you guys think? Is this enough of a reason to have a Nintendo Direct before the Switch's launch? What else could Nintendo talk about? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, of course, please leave a like and don't forget to subscribe to me on my YouTube channel and follow me on Twitter. Links for those in the description below. Peace out, guys. Bye.